Okay, so let's talk about how we can prevent injuries through training and why you get injured in the first place, right? So we have to take a complete look at a couple of things. How is the structure of your programming currently going? All right. Is your structure intelligently built and is your training execution good? Meaning every single exercise you do, how do you set up? How do you actually execute the exercise? And if you're not executing the exercise properly and you don't have a good structure, it's going to increase the likelihood of you getting injured, right? So this is where having a coach comes into play, filming videos and being super, super, super diligent with how you are actually training, right? Specifically, things like I was asked a question about an individual who has hurt their left shoulder or strained their front delt during a bench press. And this is something that's previously happened and it's a reoccurrence, and was asked if they should take any sort of healing compounds to help their injury heal faster, and that if you just take time off of training chest, because apparently training the bench press and chest was the thing that injured them. But that is not quite the case. So I'm going to go over why your training execution probably sucked ass, and that's why you injured yourself. It's your own fault. It's not the bench press. It's the fact that you don't have good training structure, you can't stick to a program, and your training execution is really garbage. Okay, so let's go over these things. Okay, so go next. Why injuries happen? So, number one, poor technique, sloppy form. You have not honed in and or even learned what good technique is, and nor do you care about it. You're just probably slanging around weight, thinking I'm gonna get big and strong if I just bench press a lot of weight. Now you're probably gonna fuck your shoulder up like you just did. Overtraining without structure. So if you don't have a program or you don't have a structure to how you're doing things, there's more of a chance that you're going to overshoot a lot of things, right? You're going to probably do too much volume. You're going to do too many reps. You're going to do too many sets. And a lot of that's not going to get anywhere, right? You're not going to grow from that. You're not going to recover from that. And then that brings me up to point number 3 is ignoring recovery. Part of your recovery, sleep, rest days, stress, and then also your nutrition, right? So making sure that you're properly fueled for each one of your sessions. All right, you can't just eat whatever the fuck you feel like, or eat a bunch of carbohydrates because carbs before training. You have to have a nutrition protocol, like an actual meal plan in place specifically for training days and non-training days. And then there's some days where you're going to train harder and some days where you're going to train not as hard. For example, an arm day versus like a leg day, you're going to have different requirements for both of those days, in accordance to like how much you're actually going to be pushing, how intense your workouts are going to be. And so injuries aren't actually just random. Like you create the environment to get injured, and they usually come from preventable mistakes, like making sure that you're warmed up properly, making sure that you're executing the movements properly, and make sure you're moving correctly through the movements, right? And then having a good training structure. So if you're not doing those things, there's almost 100% chance that you're going to get injured, right? So why intelligent training structure matters. Progressive overload is probably the number one thing that people talk about when it comes to making progress, right? It says it in the word, progressive overload, right? If you don't have things structured, you cannot have any sort of progressive overload. You're just going to be overloading randomly. And so that's no longer progressive, it's random overload, not done safely, right? Because the word safely kind of requires you to have good execution. So if you don't have structure, you don't have good execution, you are not going to be progressively overloading anything. So you're not going to be growing. You're constantly going to be injured and trying to play catch up over time. Balanced programming, it means basically like an equal amount of volume distributed over the course of, let's say, a week's worth of programming. Whether you're doing push pull legs, upper lower, a bodybuilding 5-day split, whatever, it doesn't matter, a bro split, any type of split that you do, the structure has to make sense, meaning that your volume you can recover from. However much volume you're doing in that week, in that day, you are able to recover from. Right? If you're doing too much volume or if you're adding in junk volume, you're most likely not going to be able to recover from that, and it's just going to hinder your progress, or at worst, you get injured, or even worse, you tear something. Right? So there are times where you do need to take deloads and rest periods or devolume. A good training program with a great structure, an intelligent training structure, accounts for deloads and rest periods. You cannot always just go hard. You have to also listen to your body. If your training program tells you that you are taking a deload 6 weeks from now and you feel like shit today, maybe. And this is where having a coach comes into play. Maybe you should take that deload sooner than later and avoid the injury, right? Then tracking your performance, meaning if you should have some sort of a logbook, you should be tracking it on an app on your phone, or at the very least, like put it in the notes app on your phone, right? That's the bare minimum you can do. Write it in a book, have an app that's actually given to you or created by a coach, or you can even buy programs online. Like, you have to be a complete idiot to just go into the gym and just do whatever the fuck you feel like. That you're asking for it. Anybody who does that and gets injured, I don't feel bad for you. This is your own fault, right? So you should know better than that. In today's age where we have so much information available online, you could pirate programs. Like, people are selling programs for like hundreds of dollars. You could get that shit for free on Reddit. You could go on websites and get that for free. You could get very, very well structured stuff online completely for free. So if you're not even taking advantage of that, there's Chat GPT, for fuck's sake, right? Like, every single person should have a really good, smart, intelligent training program, and it's not supposed to cost you any money, right? You can, if you want to pay a coach, you most definitely can, which is probably the smartest thing you could do, or learn it yourself and do it, right? Tracking your performance, having a program where you can write things down, and going back to the previous week to see what you did and seeing what you're doing before you actually get into the gym, and having a structure means your body's going to adapt safely, not just at fucking random, right? Chaos is what creates the environment for potential injuries. So we don't want that, right? Now, really focusing on execution. When you have good execution, it is going to greatly reduce the amount of stress on your joints. You also build tempo. You're also going to break down a little bit more muscle. You're going to have more positive benefits for hypertrophy and strength, right? Working on things like the correct range of motion. Now, when I say it says full range of motion here, there's full range of motion for the movement, and then there's full range of motion for the muscle. Whether you are choosing to do a strength sport, you're going to be working with full range of motion for the movement, aka things like the bench press, squat, and deadlift for powerlifting. There is a set range of motion that you have to go through in the sport. And if you're going to do this, you most likely are competing in the sport. There is a standard requirement for range of motion for the bench press, squat, and deadlift, right? But if you are just purely training for hypertrophy, those set of rules for range of motion for the movement get thrown out the window, and you're purely focused on building muscle. You focus on range of motion for the muscle. Each muscle is going to have a different range of motion that you go through. Each exercise for each muscle is going to have a different range of motion. It is not necessary that you get the deepest stretch possible for things like an incline dumbbell bench press. You're not going to go do the same sort of range of motion on a dumbbell press, an incline dumbbell press, as you will on like a machine press, for example, right? So learning what ranges of motion to use when is very important. Otherwise, you're going to be like one of those guys on Instagram and TikTok who tears his pec on a fucking incline benching too heavy and going all the way down, right? So picking movements that work with your body, with your current range of motion, also very important. And then quality over quantity. We're not just trying, again, unless you are a power lifter, which most powerlifters are pretty fucked when it comes to like their backs, hips, and shoulders. Unless you're a powerlifter, it does not apply to you. Lifting with purpose versus just moving weight, right? So if your intention is to build muscle, you don't need to use 90% of your max. Like you're most likely going to be anywhere between 70 to like 80, maybe even 85% of your max weights. And you're going to be moving it very intelligently. You're not just going to be fucking pumping reps just because pumping reps, like stupid, right? Train like a bodybuilder if you want to build muscle. If you want to do the powerlifting route, good luck. You're going to face a lot of injuries. It is almost guaranteed that you're going to face injuries doing that. It's part of the sport. There's no way to get around it. The best that you can do is just focus on your recovery, your nutrition, and hope things are okay. But there's a very, 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 very high likelihood you are going to tear something or something goes pretty wrong, right? Whether you're enhanced or natural, whether you're taking healing compounds or not, powerlifting tends to do that, right? And then technique. If your technique sucks, need I say more, you're going to fuck yourself and get injured. All right? So this is pretty obvious. Your muscles repair and grow when you're resting, not training. We are breaking down muscles when we train, right? They get repaired when you rest, when you're sleeping, right? And this is where a lot of things happen. Your hormones are going through, your GH gets released when you're sleeping. Your testosterone is able to ramp up a little bit when you're getting good sleep. When you're not getting good sleep, your test levels are going to drop, right? Your estrogen is going to be out of whack. Your GH is not going to be producing properly. You're not getting REM sleep, etc., right? So on top of that, if you're not sleeping properly, your CNS cannot recover, right? If your CNS is not recovering, your technique is going to be very poor. Things are going to feel heavier than they should, right? So active recovery helps your joints stay healthy, helps your muscles stay healthy, and also gives you a fresh mindset, a fresh brain at the start of the day so that you can focus a little bit better in the gym, right? And that also means limiting your caffeine intake, because if you're taking lots of caffeine, you don't sleep. So this is why I have begun to tell people stop taking pre-workouts, especially if you're taking pre-workouts past like 12 to 2 p.m. 2 p.m. latest. But if you're training in the evenings, there's absolutely no need for stimulants. You're not going to sleep. You're not going to recover. You're going to feel like shit. And most likely down the line, you're going to get injured. All right. So energy drinks and pre-workouts, limit them or take them early in the morning and go train earlier. Right. Because training without recovery, you have no foundation to build anything on. You're going to get injured. Things are going to go wrong, right? So how do we prevent injury with nutrition, right? Number one, you need protein. You need enough calories, right? And through the calories, you're also going to get carbohydrates. These should be planned around your workout, meaning you should never, ever, ever train fasted. Okay, I know we have this problem with a couple people who want to train fasted, right? Where are you getting the fuel from? What is your body using, right? It's not going to use anything that you've given it because you've not given it anything, right? So more than likely, what's the first thing that your body uses besides carbohydrates? Muscle. I have my wife here. She's a sports nutritionist. She knows. She studied this. Your body is going to use protein. It's going to break down protein. If your body's using protein for energy, so that you can work out, it's definitely not going to go to building muscle. It's definitely not going to go to recovery. So if you're training fasted, you're basically wasting muscle at the end of the day, right? And you do need carbohydrates that should be around your workouts. That means eat before you go to the gym. Eat efficiently, right? Healthy fats also help with joint health and inflammation control. They also help with hormone management. Yes, you need a healthy amount of fats from the right sources so that you could produce enough testosterone so that you can have healthy amounts of hormones in order to recover and in order to put yourself in an environment that is anabolic, not catabolic. Anabolic means building muscle, catabolic means breaking down muscle, and usually means that you lose gains. We don't want to create an environment where we're catabolic. You want to eat to create an environment where you're anabolic. Okay. Then we have other things like micronutrients, vitamin D, magnesium, electrolytes, which do help support your performance. If you want to learn more about this, go check out Coach Dasha's page. She has lots of videos on vitamin D, magnesium, electrolytes, and other vitamins and minerals that you can supplement with to aid in your nutrition, right? So nutrition is your internal recovery that complements your training. If your nutrition sucks, your training is going to suck. Nutrition like this is not just for bodybuilders. Every single athlete, no matter which sport you're partaking in, whether you compete or don't compete, if you partake in any physical activity, you need to be properly fueled. Otherwise, you're fucking shooting yourself in the foot. It's stupid. I don't know why anybody does that. Right? And then complete system approach, meaning your training, execution, recovery, nutrition equals long-term progress. Very simple, right? You have to have a really good structure put in place so that you can keep yourself consistent going into the gym and safe. Meaning if you get injured, you're out of the gym. How do you even stay consistent if you're injured? You can't. You have to stay healthy. How do you stay healthy? Being smart with your programming, making sure that you have a good structure, making sure that your recovery and nutrition is on point, right? So all of these things come together as a whole. These you cannot separate a single one of these things and be successful in any physical endeavor at all. If one of these 5 things is off, you're going to get hurt. You're going to stall your progress, or you're just not going to go anywhere at all. Right? You're just going to be running around in circles trying to chase progress, and nothing's going to happen because you don't have all these 5 things covered. And on top of that, if you don't have these things covered, and then on top of that, you're going to take peptides to help you heal. Sure, they'll help you heal, but then you're going to go back to your old habits and you're going to get injured again. So what's the point? Right? So at the end of the day, lifting isn't just about like lifting heavy. You have to lift smart. You have to train smart. I always say this, training hard is not always smart, but training smart is always hard work, right? So you need to commit to a structure. You need to commit to having very, very good execution, making sure that you're recovering properly so that you can stay consistent and the gains keep coming so that you do not get injured to slow your progress down. Guys, this is all it comes down to. You have to be smart about your training. You cannot be a YOLO and just rip it in the gym whenever you feel like. You cannot just go for random PRs. You have to have a specific way where you warm up, how you execute certain exercises. You are the one causing your own downfall. Everything that you do in the gym is in your control. Unless somebody drops something on you, that's completely out of your control. But whatever you do in the gym is your fault. So if you make progress or you get injured, both things are on you. Okay? So this is how we can train and not get injured.